Hello, and welcome to today's episode of my experience of working in Shanghai as a foreigner. Today, I'll be sharing my personal journey of working in China after relocating from Europe. This experience opened my eyes to the stark differences in work culture between East and West. My journey began when my European company opened a branch in Shanghai. Having always wanted to experience living and working abroad, I jumped at the opportunity. My boss was surprisingly supportive, as they were looking to build a team in China anyway. For almost 2 years, I worked in this Shanghai branch, but mostly remotely for the European office. This meant I maintained European working conditions, the same vacation days, working hours, and overtime policies I was used to. It was essentially working in Europe while being physically in China. After those 2 years, I decided it was time for a change. The market was shifting toward general-purpose artists rather than specialists, and I wanted to expand my skill set. I received 2 job offers from Western companies with Shanghai branches. After learning from an ex-colleague that one had poor working conditions, I chose the other. The interview process went exceptionally well. As someone with a background in VFX lighting and rendering, I was excited about the opportunity to improve their rendering capabilities and implement new tools. The job aligned perfectly with my skills and interests while offering growth potential. My first shock came on day one. In Europe, companies typically have extensive onboarding processes. At one previous job, this lasted 2 weeks before I was assigned actual work. In Shanghai, 5 to 10 minutes. It consisted of a quick office tour and a brief company presentation. No explanation of workflows or introductions to colleagues or who I would be responding to. Then came the workspace issues. My computer was a mess, missing software, filled with previous users' files, and had non-functional hardware. When I mentioned needing a different mouse, the IT person simply took one from another employee's desk. I later discovered this didn't make my new colleagues very happy. It happened few times the first day as each mouse had issues. Eventually, I found one that was good for me. Alas, the scroll wheel was not working. I could live with that, though. Later, it also came down to replacing my screens as one of them had issues. The first day was spent sorting out technical problems that should have been addressed before my arrival. On my second day, someone began introducing me to colleagues without even introducing himself first. I assumed he was a manager and went along with it, not wanting to appear rude. This was another cultural difference. In China, you're expected to just know how things are handled in the company, even though it's your first day here. Sometimes there were freelancers coming to the office doing some work. They would just come inside looking all confused with no one guiding them or telling them what to do. They would have to go and ask around, which seemed weird to me. Perhaps the biggest disappointment was the mismatch between my expected and actual work. Despite discussions during interviews about improving renderings and implementing new tools, I found myself primarily making design work, tasks that weren't what I was thinking I got hired for. During my 6 months with the company, only about 10% of my work aligned with what was discussed in my interview. While I could handle the assigned tasks thanks to my architecture background, this wasn't what had excited me about the position. The work schedule differences were particularly jarring. In Europe, an 8-hour workday is standard, and then you go home. In China, the workday typically includes a 1-hour break, extending your time at the office to 9 hours. This made my days feel significantly shorter. The most shocking difference was the approach to overtime. In Europe, overtime is either paid or compensated with extra vacation days, and it's optional. One of my previous European employers even offered triple pay for overtime hours. In China, I found managers often exploited employees, with overtime never compensated and very rarely optional. Rather than being asked if you could work extra hours, you were simply told it was a must. During my brief time there, I worked more overtime than in the previous decade in Europe, making me feel like a slave. Sometimes I wonder why people here accept being treated this way. One of my coworkers sometimes had to work all night long and never got anything for it. There was another bewildering aspect of the work culture I encountered. We were constantly pushed to learn new skills and workflows, yet the company never allocated any time during work hours for this professional development. In Europe, I was accustomed to employers who understood that acquiring new skills benefits the organization and should happen, at least partially, on company time. Previous employers had offered training days, workshops, or dedicated learning hours. In contrast, at this Shanghai office, the expectation was that all skill development should happen during my personal time. Management would repeatedly stress the importance of mastering new techniques and tools. But when I asked about when I could dedicate time to learning these skills, the implicit answer was always clear: after hours, on weekends, on my own time. I completely understand the importance of continuous learning in our rapidly evolving industry. What I found difficult to accept was the one-sided nature of this arrangement. The company wanted all the benefits of my expanded skill set without investing any resources into helping me develop it. This struck me as particularly unreasonable given the already demanding overtime expectations. After 5 months, I had a discussion with management and HR about my concerns. I explained that the work didn't align with what was discussed during hiring, and I was no longer willing to do uncompensated overtime. Later, I was also told that they seemed unhappy with my second job as a university lecturer, something I'd been doing long before joining the company. One manager even suggested that I could give my lectures at the company and then continue working afterward, a proposition I found laughable but which clearly frustrated him. Few weeks after this conversation, I was let go. But by that point, I was more relieved than upset. I had already been in contact with other companies and had considered quitting multiple times. Looking back, I see that the fundamental difference was in the approach to work-life balance and employee autonomy. In Europe, there's generally respect for personal time and clear job expectations. In my Chinese workplace experience, the boundaries were constantly overstepped, and flexibility was expected to go only one way, in the company's favor. This affected my personal life more than I was willing to accept. I don't mind working overtime when necessary. During my years running my own company, I sometimes worked 16-hour days. The difference is consent and compensation. Being told to work all weekend with no discussion or compensation feels fundamentally different than choosing to put in extra hours for a clear benefit. This experience taught me valuable lessons about cultural workplace differences and the importance of clear communication about expectations when working internationally. While challenging, it gave me insights I wouldn't have gained otherwise. I should note that my experience might be specifically related to brand event and advertising agencies in China, rather than reflective of all Chinese workplaces. The high-pressure, deadline-driven nature of this industry may intensify some of these cultural differences, and other sectors might operate with different expectations and work cultures. Nevertheless, these insights into cross-cultural work environments have been invaluable for my professional development. Thank you for listening. Until next time.